Hi everybody! This is Sakky here with a tutorial on how to do iron-on face transfers for plushies. And to show you an example, this is a plushie I finished last month, Saya, and the eyes are done with iron-on transfer. And a couple people have asked me to show how I do this process, so that's what I'm going to do today. So to start with, we need stuff that you need. So the first thing you need is iron-on transfer paper. This is just one brand, Printworks, that I use. There's a bunch of other different kinds of brands out there that you can check out. This is the dark t-shirt transfers. That bit is really important. Dark t-shirt transfers. The other kind, this is an old box, but the other kind is for white fabrics, which is it says up here for white fabrics. You don't want to get that kind because that doesn't work very well when you're transferring onto colored fabric. It's just for white fabric. And the way you can tell the difference if you have some lying around is that the white fabric transfer has red on the back and the dark fabric transfer has a blue grid on the back, which I'll show you right now. Blue grid. So you're going to need that. It's about $11 or $12 a pack, I think, for the big packs. And then you'll need some fabric. In this case, I have a plushie face that I haven't attached to anything yet, so this is going to be my little specimen here. You'll need a very small pair of scissors. I like whiskers, but whatever works for you. You can also use an X-Acto knife, but I've had problems with that in the past, so I tend to just use the scissors. You will also need some kind of inking pen if you're going to be drawing. You can use this paper on with your printer, but I like to draw them because it gives it a little personal flair, and I also don't like fighting with my printer. So I use Sakura Micron pens. You can buy them at AC Moore, and they're pretty cheap. They're like a couple dollars each. And something to color with. In this case, some Prismacolor colored pencils. And I'll go over some other different tools that you can use later on when I get to that part. So, oh, and the other important thing that you need, of course, is an iron. Ta-da! Any iron will do. You know, the irons that you normally use for ironing your clothes is fine. I recommend having a crafting iron separate from the iron that you use from your clothes because sometimes you get stuff on it and then you don't want to get it on your clothes. So now we're going to switch to the desk view, and you guys will have an easier time seeing what I'm working on. So what we're going to start with is I've actually pre-drawn the eyes out onto the transfer paper. You can see this is a sheet that I've been working off of, so I've kind of used a good chunk of it already. I've pre-drawn the eye shapes so that you guys don't have to sit there while I color or draw everything in. But I have left the color out so you can watch while I fill that bit in. So just to go over some tips, like I said, I use the Sakura Micron pen. I find that it works really well, that it transfers really well onto the paper, and that it does actually smudge a little. You can see over here I've actually dragged my finger across it and created a little bit of a smudge, but it's nothing that I can't fix. It's also outside of the eye, which is good. I'm just going to do some touch-ups here on the line. But the Micron pens work really well. They look really nice. They're nice and black, very clean looking. I've tried a few different other types of drawing tools on this paper, and some of them are Sharpies, Prismacolor markers, and ordinary pens. Ordinary pens I don't recommend. What seems to happen with the ordinary pens is you get kind of an echo when you use the ordinary pens that remains on your transfer paper, and that has happened to me a few times, so I try not to use that. For some reason, this paper kills markers. So if you use Sharpies or Prismacolor markers or even just regular Crayola markers, it seems to really dry out the tip a lot. So I try not to use markers on it, except in the rare occasion. Every once in a while I'll use it to color, but I'll always do a dabbing motion instead of a dragging motion. And whenever I do the dragging motion, it really seems to dry out the marker a lot. So I tend to stick with the Micron pens and the pencils because that's what's worked best for me. I haven't tried any other brands of colored pencils, but I'm assuming that they would probably work just as well. So this is actually going to be Yaten, which is Sailor Star Healer, in her workout form. So I'm going to color these eyes in green. And basically, when you use the Prismacolor pencils, at least anyway, you can press pretty hard. The paper is not going to tear or anything like that. But it does have somewhat of an inconsistency. They can sort of be streaky and liney, but it's all stuff that you can adjust as you work. And you sort of have to try it and get used to it to sort of have a feel for it. it's good to have your pencils kind of sharpened beforehand, which I didn't do. And you want to be careful because the black will smudge, so you want to kind of try to stay in the lines. Don't be too worried if you color over parts that are supposed to be white, because you can always go back with white paint later, or a white gel pen. You want to sort of highlight that white stuff again. I've definitely made quite a few mistakes before and then just touched them up later. So a little bit of shading. There, that's good. Okay, so the next thing that you have to do is you have to cut out all these little tiny shapes, and this part is sort of the part that's a bit of a pain. So one thing I definitely recommend when you're cutting out a small shape, like this is the mouth right here that I'm going to cut out, when you're cutting out a small shape, if you cut the sides first, and then you cut, you know, the long way on the bottom, you're cutting off the part you don't need. You're still holding on to this big bit. So instead of cutting the whole shape out and then trying to cut out that tiny little shape, it's much easier to have this whole chunk of paper to hold on to. And then you only have to cut this small bit here. I usually put everything on the face after so I know where it is, because it's easy to lose this little stuff. Alright, so there's the mouth. I'll just put that aside. Now when you're cutting out the eyes, you can actually go around the little eyelashes and then worry about all the little indents later. So we've got one eye shape cut out. And you do want to be careful when you're touching them because, like I said, it can smudge before you actually have ironed it on, so try not to drag your fingers across it too much or you might end up with a big black mark through your pretty eye that you've drawn. Then you can go in with the eyelashes and cut them at an angle like this. This is sort of the picky gritty part here. And it's really, really important that you have a nice sharp pair of scissors, or like I said, an X-Acto knife, something that's really going to allow you to have the control that you need to get all the little bits. Now if you accidentally overcut and you cut off one of the bangs or you do something else you think is a total tragedy, you have the option of keeping that piece and trying to place it when you iron it on. Or you can say "C'est la vie" and go back and draw another one, which I have previously done. Having fingernails sometimes helps pick these little pieces out. Alright, there's one eye. Now, like I said, with long things like eyebrows, I cut the sides first, and then I cut out the bottom line and then the top line. And like I said, that just is so that you have something big to hold on to, because sometimes it's really hard to hold a teeny tiny little thing and cut it out. It's an eyebrow. Okay, so now I've got all my pieces cut out. I don't do noses for my plushies. I don't know why. I just don't. And the next part that we have to do is we have to take the backing off the transfer paper. So see, we still have the blue grid on the back here. And to do that, actually one tool I forgot to tell you that you'll need is a sharp little pin. Just a tiny sharp little pin. And so far the best way I found to do this is to just get a bright light and a sharp pin and poke until you get it free. Now that was really easy. It doesn't always happen that easy. That was just great. And then I usually just place them down roughly where I think I'm going to want to put them. And this can get really time consuming. Sometimes I'm just trying to pick these little things apart forever, I feel like.